Okay, today we are diving deep into Ali Hazelwood's very buzzy new novel, Problematic Summer Romance. This is a book that basically wears its central conflict right on the cover. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what that means for you as a reader.
So let's just start with the title itself, Problematic Summer Romance. It's not just some catchy phrase, it's really a promise. It's signaling that the story is totally aware of its own controversial premise, and it's inviting us to ask a very specific question right from the get-go. And yeah, that question is, what exactly is the problem here? The book centers its entire plot around this one idea, so let's unpack the core conflict that really drives this whole story. To get the problem, you have to understand the people involved and the central tension that really defines the relationship from the very first page. It's all about the characters and their shared history.
So on one side, we have Maya Kilgore. She's 23 years old, a brilliant but kind of struggling grad student in physics, just trying to figure out her life. And on the other side, we've got Connor Harkness. He's 38, he's her brother's best friend, and he's a super successful biotech investor. So the gap between them, you see, it's not just about age, it's about life experience, it's about wealth, it's about status. And, the book is really self-aware about this whole thing. It doesn't just happen to have an age gap, it is explicitly about power dynamics. In fact, this isn't a term that reviewers are just slapping on the story. It's a phrase that Connor himself uses over and over again. He is so aware of the imbalance, and that awareness, well, it becomes the main obstacle. And this isn't some new crush. These two built a really deep emotional connection over years of calls and messages. But then Connor just abruptly cut things off. He cited their power dynamic as the reason, leaving Maya totally hurt and confused. So that tension is already baked right in before our story even really starts. So, okay, with years of silence and a lot of hurt between them, how in the world do they end up back in the same orbit? Well, the plot uses a classic romance trick, and it brilliantly designs a setting that forces them together in just the most romantic way possible. The setup is a classic romance trope. We're talking forced proximity. Maya's brother is getting married at this gorgeous villa in Taormina, Sicily. And guess who else is there for over a week? Yep, Connor. They are literally stuck together in one of the most romantic places on Earth, with absolutely nowhere to hide from their past. Now, the setting here is so much more than just a pretty backdrop. In fact, the source material actually calls Sicily a bonus character. You've got the beautiful Ionian coast, ancient ruins, incredible food. All these details just work together to crank up the mood and push the romance forward. It's a whole sensory experience. Okay, so with such a deliberately tricky premise, what is it that makes this book so compelling for so many readers? Let's take a look at the 3 key strengths that are consistently brought up in the reviews. The argument for reading this book really comes down to 3 main things. First, it doesn't try to run away from its controversial premise. It confronts it head-on. Second, like we just said, that beautiful Sicilian setting is basically a character in its own right. And third, it features the kind of witty, intelligent heroine the author is so famous for. This is so crucial. The book does not shy away from the ethical questions. Connor's whole internal conflict about being the problematic older guy, it isn't just a minor plot point. It's the engine of the story. The narrative forces both of the characters and us, the reader, to really grapple with this debate. And for fans of the author, this is going to feel very familiar and very welcome. Maya is a classic Ali Hazelwood heroine. She is not some naive girl just swept off her feet. She's a witty, super smart physics PhD student who is actively trying to prove that she's an adult and fully capable of making her own choices. But of course, a book called Problematic Summer Romance is bound to have some things that just won't work for everyone. So now for the other side of the coin, here are the potential drawbacks that might just be deal breakers for some people. And it all starts with this number, 15. A 15-year age gap is the main source of all the conflict. And look, for some readers, that alone is a hard stop. But even for people who are open to it, the way it's handled can be a point of contention. This leads to the biggest criticism that you see out there. Does the conflict get, well, repetitive? Because the plot leans so heavily on the age gap, some readers feel the push and pull just becomes circular. The characters often rehash the same core argument, I'm too old for you versus I'm an adult. And the debate doesn't really evolve all that much until the very end.
So, to sum up the potential red flags, first, as we just talked about, the central conflict can feel repetitive. Second, the entire ethical premise, older, wealthier guy with a history with a much younger woman, that might just be an ick factor that you can't get past. And finally, this is a spin-off, so new readers might feel a little bit like they've walked into a party where they don't know anybody. So with all of that in mind, how do you decide if you should pick this one up? Let's break it down into a simple little guide to see if you're the target audience for this particular romance.
Okay, you should definitely read this if you love age gap romances, but you want one that really takes the emotional and ethical weight seriously. It's also a must-read for existing fans of Ali Hazelwood's smart STEM heroines. And finally, if a lush, escapist vacation setting mixed with heavy relationship drama is your jam, then this is for you. On the other hand, you might want to skip this one if romances with significant power imbalances just make you uncomfortable from the start. If you prefer your love stories to be, as the source material puts it, morally clean, this book's whole premise will probably just be a source of stress. And if you have a low tolerance for repetitive conflicts, this one might really test your patience. Ultimately, it all comes down to this quote from the source material, which I think just perfectly captures the book's essence. It's a more mature vacation novel for the romance reader who wants to embrace the discomfort, not just the fantasy. So the final question isn't just whether you like romance, but whether you're ready to engage with one that is, by its very design, problematic.